Hello everyone, welcome to video 7a, How are smartphones made? Today's objectives are two. We have the first one, use passive voice to talk about how things are made, and the second one, discuss about needs and wants. Most of us have a lot of electronics. We got cell phones, laptops, different kinds of electronics, and video games, but we don't care about how they are made or where they are made. This video is about that. It's really interesting.
The other day, I couldn't find my computer charger. My computer is my lifeline to my work, my friends, my music. So I looked everywhere, even in that drawer where this lives. I know you have one too, a tangle of old chargers, the sad remains of electronics past. How do they end up with so many of these things? It's not like I'm always after the latest gadget. My old devices broke or became so obsolete I couldn't use them anymore. And not one of these old chargers fits my computer. Ugh! This isn't just bad luck, it's bad design. I call it design for the dump. Design for the dump sounds crazy, right? But when you're trying to sell lots of stuff, it makes perfect sense. It's a key strategy of the companies that make our electronics. In fact, it's a key part of our whole unsustainable materials economy. Design for the dump means making stuff to be thrown away quickly. Today's electronics are hard to upgrade, easy to break, and impractical to repair. My DVD player broke and I took it to a shop to get fixed. The repair guy wanted $50 just to look at it. A new one at Target cost $39. In the 1960s, Gordon Moore, the giant brain and semiconductor pioneer, predicted that electronics designers could double processor speed every 18 months. So far, he's been right. This is called Moore's Law. But somehow the bosses of these genius designers got it all twisted up. They seem to think that Moore's Law means every 18 months we have to throw out our old electronics and buy more. Problem is, the 18 months that we use these things are just a blip in their entire life cycle. And that's where these dump designers aren't just causing a pain in our wallets, they're causing a global toxic emergency. You see, electronics start where most stuff starts, in mines and factories. Many of our gadgets are made from 1,000 different materials, shipped from around the world to assembly plants. There, workers turn them into products using loads of toxic chemicals like PVC, mercury, solvents, and flame retardants. Today, this usually happens in far-off places that are hard to monitor, but it used to happen near my home in Silicon Valley, which, thanks to the electronics industry, is one of the most poisoned communities in the US. IBM's own data revealed that its workers making computer chips had 40% more miscarriages and were significantly more likely to die from blood, brain, and kidney cancer. The same thing is starting to happen all around the world. It turns out the high-tech industry isn't as clean as its image. So, after its toxic trip around the globe, it lands in my hands. I love it for a year or so, and then it starts drifting further from its place of honor on my desk or in my pocket. Maybe it spends a little time in my garage before being tossed out. And that brings us to disposal, which we think of as the end of its life, but really it's just moved on to become part of the mountains of e-waste we make every year. Remember how these devices were packed with toxic chemicals? Well, there's a simple rule of production. Toxics in, toxics out. Computers, cell phones, TVs, all this stuff is just waiting to release all their toxics when we throw them away. Some of them are slowly releasing this stuff even while we're using them. You know those fat old TVs that people are chucking for high-def flat screens? They each have about 5 pounds of lead in them. Lead, as in lead poisoning. So, almost all of this e-waste either goes from my garage to a landfill or it gets shipped overseas to the garage workshop of some guy in Guiyu, China, whose job it is to recycle it. I've visited a bunch of these so-called recycling operations. Workers without protective gear sit on the ground smashing open electronics to recover the valuable metals inside and chucking or burning the parts that no one will pay them for. So while I'm on to my next gadget, my last gadget is off poisoning families in Guiyu or India or Nigeria. Each year we make 25 million tons of e-waste, which gets dumped, burned, or recycled.
Let's use passive voice. We have two voices, active and passive. Active is the voice that you have already worked on and you have already known, but the second one is when we want to focus on the object. Let's see two sentences, right? In the first one, the world generated 50 million tons of e-waste every year. The word is the subject. is the one that is doing the action, that is active voice, and the verb is in past tense. But if we want to focus on the object, we use passive voice. 50 million tons of e-waste are generated every year. So the amount is amazing, right? We discard a lot of electronic waste every year. As we want to focus on the object, we use passive voice. This is the object. Look, the object here is the subject here. 50 million tons of e-waste are generated every year. So in passive voice, we use the verb to be and the past participle of the verb. We use passive voice when we don't want to focus on the agent of the action, on the subject of the action, or we don't want to mention it, right? Let's see some examples. You got some examples here. More than 60 elements are commonly used in the manufacturing of smartphones, right? So we don't care about who makes the smartphones. We want to focus on the number of elements that we use to make smartphones, right? So more than 60 elements are commonly used. That's why we use passive voice. The same here. Workers in factories, they are the most important part of the sentence, the object, right? Consumers are motivated. The average device is used for just over 2 years. And as I said, you have to use the verb to be and the past participle of the verb, right? When the verb is regular, the past participle ends in ed. Let's practice. We got an exercise to tell how things are made by using passive voice. We have the sentence, Apple assembles iPhones in China. Apple is the subject, is the one doing the action. Well, actually, in passive voice, it is obvious that Apple is not doing the action. This action happens in China. iPhones are assembled in China. iPhones is the object here. Are assembled, verb to be plus past participle in China. Now it's your turn. Samsung supplies batteries for iPhones. Batteries are supplied by Samsung. People discard lots of electronics every year. So, lots of electronics are discarded by people every year. So, don't forget to do homework, complete this video, and do the video checking questionnaire. See you next video. These are the references. Bye.
Universidad Santo Tomás, institución vigilada por el Ministerio de Educación Nacional.